Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Friday, October 2nd. Let's get right to the breaking news. The president announced on Twitter just before 1 o'clock this morning that he and the First Lady tested positive for COVID-19 last night. He posted, quote, "We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together." The First Lady tweeted in part, "We are feeling good and I have postponed all upcoming engagements." We know the president traveled to Bedminster yesterday for a fundraiser. Senior administration officials would not address if he is symptomatic. We're told he will work from the White House residence. This news comes after it was revealed that senior White House aide and a member of the president's inner circle, Hope Hicks, had tested positive for the virus. A source tells NBC News Hicks tested negative on Wednesday morning. We are told she began showing minor symptoms Wednesday evening and was quarantined on Air Force One on the way back from the president's campaign rally in Minnesota. Her positive test came back yesterday morning.
And Willie, as Jonathan Lemire reported earlier, it was not the White House who told the world that Hope Hicks had tested positive for COVID-19, but rather it was Jennifer Jacobs with Bloomberg, who also is reporting this morning that some of Donald Trump's closest aides sensed on Wednesday that the president was feeling poorly. The president seemed exhausted, Jacobs writes, and she was told that some chalked it up to fatigue from an intense campaign schedule, but others began to worry about the coronavirus. Also, Jacobs reporting that Vladimir Putin has sent Donald Trump a telegram this morning and says that he is sure, "I am sure your inherent vitality, spirit, and optimism will help you cope with the dangerous virus," Vladimir Putin wrote. But of course, we are not concerned with what Vladimir Putin is saying this morning. Instead, we're concerned, obviously, about the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief's health, living in the dangerous world that we live in, and also, of course, the First Lady, Hope Hicks, other people inside the White House. But as we look at the number of people, Willie, who have been surrounded, who've surrounded Hope Hicks, and we hear from Chris Christie this morning that nobody over 4 days, as their preparation for the debate was going between Friday and Tuesday, nobody in the rooms, says former New Jersey governor and Trump advisor, at least during these debates, Chris Christie says nobody was wearing a mask. And of course, Donald Trump not wearing a mask for most of the time. Reports that Melania Trump, though she entered with a mask on, reports that she was not wearing a mask during the debate. Mark Meadows, of course, he plays a significant role in all of this. Another man who mocked reporters for wearing masks on Capitol Hill. But Mark Meadows was on Capitol Hill this week, obviously working on a COVID package, but also moving around the Senate with Amy Coney Barrett, going to other senators' offices, trying to work on her confirmation process. So the possibility of this is spreading, of these infections spreading, is certainly something that the White House should prepare for. You look at the percentages, and the percentages are certainly on the side of most of these people being perfectly fine and getting through it, but obviously a reason to concern for those who are older, who may be impacted by the disease.
Yeah, also in that photograph that we just had up there with Judge Amy Coney Barrett, the Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Mark Meadows there with right in front of the American flag, and in the foreground, Vice President Mike Pence. We can report now that Vice President Pence and the Second Lady Karen Pence have tested negative this morning. That's according to their press secretary. Obviously, they were quite concerned. Tested negative this morning. That's in addition to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We learned this morning that he, too, has tested negative. He said his last exposure with the president was more than 2.5 weeks ago. But to your point, Joe, if you look at that graphic of 21 people exposed to Hope Hicks, That's just the beginning of the story. I mean, you take Mark Meadows alone, his time on Capitol Hill meeting with Mitch McConnell. From there, who all did Mitch McConnell meet with? Meeting with different senators, who all did they meet with after that? That is the nature of this terrible disease. That contact tracing is underway, will continue this morning. But the ripple effects go out so far, it's almost too difficult to calculate at this point. And we can remind people as we talk about the debate on Tuesday night that the president and Vice President Joe Biden were not wearing masks. They were at a distance, but obviously the conversation was animated. You'll remember at one point, President Trump mocked Vice President Biden for wearing a mask too often. Let's bring back into our conversation reporter for the Associated Press, Jonathan Lemire. Jonathan, you've been walking us through this timeline all morning long. Let's just come out and say that we are relying so far on information from the White House. The media is doing its job, but these announcements have come from the White House, and they don't have a great track record, frankly, of credibility on communicating anything. And now this dire story is going to require some clear communication.
Willie, there are few more vital national security issues than the health of the President of the United States. And indeed, we, not just the media, but we as the American public and the world will be relying on the White House for updates on his condition. And to be clear, this White House does not have much credibility in terms of their truthfulness and ability to disclose information, particularly negative information about the president's health or otherwise. So certainly that is a concern here, in part that probably will rattle financial markets and make global capitals uneasy as we wait to see how the president is doing. And to add to the Bloomberg report of a few moments ago that Joe just read, I talked to a Republican official who noted that yesterday, prior to the diagnosis, the president had a conference call with supporters in Iowa, and his voice was rather raspy. He just seemed it was described as being, sort of not feeling great, according to someone else that I talked to. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that was symptoms of the coronavirus, but certainly it's something that people are going to be watching here in the days ahead. In terms of the vice president's diagnosis, yes, he is negative for now, but of course, as we've been hearing all morning from medical experts, he will probably need to be tested again in the coming days to make sure that is the case, that he's still not in the incubation period. But to be clear, he had less contact with the president and Hope Hicks over the last 48 to 72 hours than other senior staffers. The vice president had been on his own campaign schedule. He had not been in the White House. He was not on the trip to either the debate or to Minnesota with the president. The last that we know that he saw President Trump was Tuesday during the day at the White House for a brief interaction. But certainly, this is an extraordinary week for this presidency, and the timeline, which we can certainly go through again if you'd like, but it should be highlighted this part alone, certainly, that Hope Hicks was traveling back on Air Force One Wednesday night from Minnesota and was feeling sick. She isolated on the plane. She was displaying symptoms of the coronavirus. She then received a positive diagnosis on Thursday. The White House, during the day,